What's up, everybody? You're watching Between the Tackles. Michaela Vernava, Zach Cox, and Doug Kide. Got a rare day of having these guys in the studio because the Patriots are in the great state of West Virginia. Going to talk about them, obviously, in just a sec. But first, I need to start with something. I am wearing this polo for the WEI NESN Jimmy Fund Telethon, and those lines are still open. I was hosting it earlier with Emerson Latzia, Courtney Cox, and Dale Arnold have been on set. A lot of great guests in at Fenway Park today, and I want to take this moment just to mention it because our podcast reaches much further than just New England. So for all of those states out there who may be Patriots fans, transplants out west or whatever, they're still trying to fill in that map. Back at Fenway, they have a map of all the states that... Yeah,
we need some Northwest needs to get their act together.
When I was there, before I came right here, they had just gotten Washington. I know they have California and Texas, but there were still some Midwestern states. So that phone number is 877-738-1234. It is a great cause, and we've been able to hear from a lot of cancer patients and survivors who have been amazing, telling their stories and really trying to spread the word of the impact that Dana-Farber has on so many lives. You can go to jimmyfund.org to learn more about what they do, and we do encourage you to do that if possible. It is really such a great cause and has such a big impact. And the fact that so many Boston athletes come out to support it really is a testament to how legit the Jimmy Fund is in what they do. So
yeah, I'm sure if the Patriots were not in West Virginia this week, I'm sure you'd see some of them come filter through Fenway. I know you got a lot of Bruins players, Red Sox players, Celtics players and coaches. It's really kind of an event that the whole city really comes together, and really everybody at NESN, pretty much every NESN employee will be helping out with this in some way. I know Doug was over at Fenway last night. I'll be over there tonight. You were over at Fenway earlier today. It's something that everybody really feels passionate about, and everybody wants to help out as best they can.
Yeah.
And Tom Brady was on the telethon. I think he was probably the first guest of the whole thing. Kicked it off at 6 a.m. So he was part of it as well.
That was yesterday, and so that will be open until midnight tonight. So plenty of time, and if you're able to donate a gift, every little bit counts. It really does, and there are often sponsors who are matching gifts and doubling them, and so it's really great. And on that call, when Tom called in the morning, was when he admitted that he probably will not be playing at 55 years old.
Real breaking news.
He did say that.
There.
Yeah,
he had to throw that probably caveat in there, though.
First he said I won't be, and then it was after that he said, "Oh, probably won't." But
if he's still feeling good at 54 and a half, he could still be out there. Who knows? I mean, taking a year-by-year basis at a certain point, I think. Yeah.
I mean, you never know, but really was the first time I've heard him actually put a possible end date on himself. I've never heard him.
He said mid-40s before. I think at one point he might have said 48. He just keeps moving it around.
Yeah, all right. Well, 55 as of now, I guess, is the cutoff. So while these guys are out in West Virginia practicing with the Texans, who do you guys have your eyes on most now coming out of the first preseason game, and now they have this second joint practice sessions, whatever. Who are you watching?
The guys really for me are the ones who didn't flash as much as we expected them to against the Jaguars. So, I mean, obviously everyone will have their eye on the Jacob Hollisters and the Austin Carrs. Those guys really did very well in their first preseason game. But I'll have my eye on Harvey.
Touchdown catch by Austin Carr.
It was a great catch. Yeah. Great catch.
Harvey Longy, the linebacker, still. Defensive tackle, Adam Butler. And then beyond that, I don't know. Those are really the two main guys that I'm watching, just because Longy played well in the run game, but neither one of those guys had the pressure that I expected them to get after the Jaguars quarterback. So maybe this week they'll be able to do that against the Texans. I would expect them to play quite a bit in this game again, and we'll see how they fare. Who do you have your eye on?
You're kind of watching two guys that I guess are on the rise, you could say, as in that they're undrafted rookies. I have my eye on a couple guys that kind of are on the decline, or at least they appear to be on the decline by the way that they played in that first game. Landon Roberts didn't have a great game. He was a significant contributor at middle linebacker last year for the Super Bowl winning Patriots team. Hasn't looked great so far. I think his roster spot could be in jeopardy. I still think, if I had to guess today, I still think he makes the team, but he definitely has some work to do. Jordan Richards is a guy who's probably even lower down the totem pole right now. He really did not look good against the Jaguars. really hasn't flashed much at all since those very first few days of camp when he really kind of surprised us with some interceptions and pass breakups and whatnot. And then Cyrus Jones, who I think was the butt of a lot of jokes after that first preseason game, did not play it well at all on the defensive end. He's a guy that I still think has a good chance to make the team as long as his return game doesn't completely collapse like it did last season, but definitely did not put himself in a good situation with those long touchdowns he gave up.
Yeah, it's kind of an interesting week because Roberto Aguayo, the Buccaneers' former second-round pick, got released. What was that? Sometime during the weekend.
Yeah, I think it was
They
Sunday.
just showed it on Hard Knocks. And you're talking about 2 second-round picks there in Jordan Richards and Cyrus Jones, both of which have worked out pretty much about as well as Roberto Aguayo so far. Last year was Richards' second season. Barely played at all on defense, really wasn't much of a special teams contributor, and we saw a lot of his issues in that first preseason game where he's a safety who's not fast enough to cover deep. He's also a safety who's not really fast enough to cover one-on-one. So, I mean, you're kind of only looking at him as a run defender, which is kind of similar to a Landon Roberts, who also can't really play in the passing game. He's more of a run defender as well, and Cyrus Jones, I mean, we've all seen his issues, and I believe he was taken, 1 pick after Roberto Aguayo in last year's draft in the second round.
60, I believe.
And, I mean, he might be the second-round pick taken in that draft that's released after his rookie season. But, like you said, it really does kind of depend on how he does in special teams, if he can catch those punts, if he can catch those kicks. And if he can, then the Patriots have to decide whether they're willing to carry him as just basically a pure special teams player, because he got burned on some deep throws. He's never really flashed that much as a cornerback in coverage. He's kind of been around a couple times, hasn't got beat quite as bad as he did this week, but doesn't really get his hand on the ball too much and hasn't had any picks. So, yeah.
I really feel bad for this guy at this point. He's a young kid, and you would know him better than I. It doesn't seem to be for lack of trying. At least he says the right things.
Yeah.
I remembered that after the Super Bowl when he said, I don't really feel part of this win. It was sad in a way, but also kind of good to see. If I'm a coach, I'd probably happy to hear something like that you're not just, taking the ring and happy knowing that you've made so many mistakes throughout the season.
Yeah, I never got the sense last year that Cyrus Jones' struggles were due to a kind of like a lackadaisical attitude or anything like that. He seemed to be really hard on himself. I think he was actually too hard on himself, which is kind of why his game got off the rails. He just completely lost confidence in himself. That's why I'm saying it's like you kind of feel bad for him. You know what I mean? Because it's to see someone working that hard. And he, especially the situation he's in right now, he really has no wiggle room. I mean, he's been great catching punts and kicks since the beginning of camp, really. Yeah. But he's going to be a guy where people aren't really going to realize, unless he takes a bunch of punts back for a touchdown or something like that, they're not going to realize the positive strides he makes. But when you see him get burned for a 97-yard touchdown pass, everybody jumps right back on him. So he's really in a tough place, but I think he can play himself out of it as long as he keeps his head on straight in the return game and doesn't have any big-time lapses there. But he's definitely behind the 8 ball, as they say.
One thing that I almost feel like a change of scenery would be the best thing for him at this point. And it's tough to say that after 1 year, but he is a guy, like you said, who does really seem to take these things hard. He's not a guy that you see joking around a lot in the locker room. I think he takes himself very seriously, and I think that a lot of the criticism might get to him a little bit, even if he won't admit it. But the one thing that I feel like the change of scenery might be best at this point is that you still have fans, Patriots fans, who criticize Devin McCourty from his second season in the NFL when he struggled at cornerback, and people still think that guy sucks. What would Cyrus Jones have to do at this point to actually get Patriots fans to get beyond his struggles and actually accept him for being a good, useful NFL player? He would have to, like you said, return God knows how many punts or kicks at this point.
No matter how poorly he plays at cornerback, obviously if he plays better at cornerback, he's going to have a better chance of making the team. That's obvious. But if he makes the team as a cornerback, he's going to be, at best, the 5th cornerback, I think, behind Malcolm Butler, Stephon Gilmore, Eric Rowe, Jonathan Jones. So he's really not going to be playing much at all unless he has an injury above him or unless they kind of go into full dime quarter defense late in games. So I think that's really only exclusively if he can get his return game right. And he doesn't even have to be a superstar. As long as he can prove that they can put him out there and not be afraid that he's going to muff a punt at the 2-yard line again like he did against Baltimore last year, stuff like that. As long as they can trust him to be just reliable out there, because we've seen when he has the ball in his hands, he's pretty talented. I mean, we saw that even last year. Obviously, back at Alabama, he was basically the best punt returner in the nation. And then even last year, when he had the ball, he had some electric returns. So I think if he can get that right, regardless of how poorly he plays on defense, I still think he has a good shot of making this team. He just has to keep his focus and stay diligent in that aspect of the game.
If he is not able to do that and they can't be, but who will they have back there returning?
For punts,
who would be their go-to?
Edelman, Amendola, probably one of those
guys.
Not
an ideal situation. You think they
fine.
bring in someone else?
I think Zach has mentioned this before. It's not the worst situation to have Amendola back there this year, though, because he's, the fifth wide receiver behind the three starters, Malcolm Mitchell and then him. So, I mean, I think you can trust him. Honestly, at punt returner, just catch the ball. That's the most important thing, because if you muff a punt and give the ball back to the other team, that's the equivalent of a 50 or 60-yard bomb down the field. I mean, it's a complete change in not only possession, but field position. So just to have a guy back there who you can trust to catch the ball and maybe get you 9 or 10 yards, that's pretty huge.
So does that make Cyrus Jones' chances of making the team even smaller? Because I even overlooked that. You kind of forget that Danny Amendola really isn't as crucial of a piece to this puzzle in the receiving core anymore. So that fear of, we don't want to put him back there and have him get hurt.
I think you could definitely say that. I think they would prefer to have Cyrus Jones back there than Danny Amendola. Amendola's a lot older. He's had some injuries in recent years. If you have him back there, there's no guarantee he's going to be there for all 16 games. And if he gets hurt, you have to put Julian Edelman, Brandon Cooks back there. I really don't think you want to do that, because that exposes those guys who are going to be some of the Patriots'
maybe
biggest
Dion Lewis. He's done kicks,
but he's another injury-prone kind of guy. It complicates the situation. It doesn't leave you as much room for error if Cyrus Jones is not on this team as that number one returner. But if he can't do it, then there's no reason to keep him around. So that's going to be the question.
Well, which players that we didn't see in the first preseason game do you want to see out there on Saturday?
Well, I think that a lot of those starters who we didn't see, I think this is a game that we could see Tom Brady for maybe a series or two. I'd really like to see what Rex Burkhead could do, because I was talking about this with our buddy Henry McKenna last night, actually. The Mike Gillislee situation is really kind of, I don't know if you'd say up in the air at this point, but the longer that he stays out with that hamstring injury, the less likely it is that he starts week one as their early down running back. And if it's not going to be him, then Rex Burkhead could be that guy, and he's the one who's actually healthy right now. So I'd really like to see what he could do as a between-the-tackles runner this week. And really, I mean, you could go down the list of those first-teamers. I think we will see most of them this week. And I think that Burkhead might be the most exciting, just because we haven't seen him in a Patriots uniform yet.
Yeah, he would be my number one as well. I'd love to see Brandon Cooks out there, just from, I guess, like a spectacle standpoint. I want to see. I'm not worried at all about how he's going to fit into this Patriots offense, but I would like to see how the Patriots would use him. And obviously it's going to be a bit of a dumbed-down game plan in this game, especially since they are playing the Texans so early in the season. Love to see what he can do. It would be nice to see Tom Brady get back out there. But the number one guy that I'm looking to see that wasn't playing last week is Rex Burkhead. I was a little bit surprised that he didn't play at all, and they gave Dion Lewis so many snaps last week.
Yeah.
Maybe that's reversed this week. Maybe he enters the game as their number one back, and they really give him a lot of work over the first 2 quarters. Because as we've talked about, he's far from a proven commodity, Rex Burkhead is. I mean, I know that his reputation is pretty high around the league. There were plenty of teams willing to bring him in, willing to, from even according to reports, pay him more money than the Patriots did. So people obviously think he can be a talented running back in this league, but we've never really seen it. So I would like to see it.
One other one is just James O'Shaughnessy, because Hollister had such a massive game in week 1 that I think so many people are excited about him. But O'Shaughnessy, who knows, he could go off for 100 yards this week. He seems to be healthy now, and looks like he will possibly play against the Texans. We'll have to find out. But
why did they play Dion Lewis for as long? Like, what were they looking for? Because as we've mentioned before, he is an injury-prone guy. So why keep him out there for so long in a preseason game? What were they looking to find?
It's kind of a big question mark there. I mean, you could either look at one of two ways. Maybe they were seeing if his ACL looks a little better this year, if he's maybe the same player that he was earlier in 2015 rather than late in 2016, or maybe he's a guy who's on the roster bubble. I mean, it could really go either way on that situation. And if his ACL didn't look good, if he didn't look as quick and shifty as he did in 2015, then that could put him on the roster bubble. At the same time, the Patriots do like to really work one running back per preseason game. That seems to be their trend. So that might have been Dion Lewis's game, whereas this could be Rex Burkhead's game, and then maybe week 3 or week 4 is Mike Gillislee's game. So we'll just have to kind of see. I mean, it was strange. You see a bunch of guys whose names you don't know, and then there's Dion Lewis carrying the ball for half the game. So I think on the surface it didn't look like a great sign for him, but it could wind up being much ado about nothing, really.
So would you say he is not a lock on this roster?
I had him on my near locks list. I did a list of locks,
So the job
near
is
locks,
sort of his to lose in that sense.
bubble, and
this
long
point?
shots.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think it's just not necessary to carry him, because if they do have Gillislee, they do have James White, and they do have Rex Burkhead, and then maybe if they carried someone like Brandon Bolden or DJ Foster, Lewis is he's a do-everything back, but so is Rex Burkhead. He's a different style of do-everything back, and he's might be a better backup third down back than Rex Burkhead, but their roles probably would be similar if they both stuck on this team. And Lewis, with his contract, is probably a lot easier to cut if they wanted to only keep 3 pure running backs.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I'd put him right at the top of my near lock list, where he's a guy that I would be very surprised if they did cut, but I wouldn't be. I can envision a situation where they would cut him. I just don't think it's going to happen. Yeah.
Who else is on the bubble but on the side of possibly popping the bubble, falling off the bubble? By popping the bubble, I don't mean falling into the bubble. I mean popping it and.
I might be confused about the bubble analogy in general. Is falling into the bubble making the team or not making the team?
I just really made the whole bubble thing very literal.
It's a concept I struggle with, to be honest.
I know. Well, yeah. Why
if you're on the bubble, then. Do you want to fall in or fall off?
Like an edge is not synonymous for bubble, so right?
Yeah.
To my knowledge, bubble
edges,
and
so
edge are not synonymous. So it's like
what happens
how
if the
about
bubble
guys
bursts?
on the ledge? Like that would be a good one. Guys on the
plank.
Let's come up with a
plank is a little better than ledge, I think. Yeah. At least you're jumping into water.
We need to come up with a new term that will eventually spread throughout the entire football world, because on the bubble, you're right, it doesn't make sense.
No.
And
So to clarify, are you saying that
I'm saying who's on the bubble that's gonna, like, I think of it as like Jenga, like who's gonna knock it over, and
so
then
on the
side
of lock or
not making the team.
Not making the team. So my list of
now that we're all clear on that.
My list of bubble players was fairly long. I'm probably not going to read all of them, but...
Hold on, I have to interrupt you for 1 second. We are going to be taking questions very soon, so start asking them now, please. And if you feel the need to just insult us, we've already heard everything, so you don't need to. But ask us real questions. Go ahead.
Players that people probably would have heard of at least would be like Brandon Bolden, DJ Foster, Adrian Waddle, Geno Grissom, Jonathan Freeney, Landon Roberts... Justin Coleman.
Roberts, that's one that I feel like is more notable so far than some of the others that you've read.
He was one that, if I was going to be safe, I might have put him on the near lock list, but I had David Harris on the near lock list, and I just don't really think you can keep both of those players because they're both early down linebackers who don't contribute quite as much in the passing game and really probably won't contribute at all in special teams. So I don't know how many of those players you can really keep on your roster.
So where do Van Noy and McClellan fall? Are they, do you think, near locks?
Locks?
Because
Van
those
Noy
are
is a
guys, when
lock.
we're talking about Roberts,
Yes.
and as you were saying that in the special teams, the first thing that comes to my mind is that McClellan has been useful on special teams. Would that give him the edge over Roberts?
I just think that Van Noy and McClellan are much more versatile than Roberts. I think that's what pushes them over the edge. I would be very surprised if either Van Noy or McClellan doesn't make this team, unless, we haven't seen McClellan in a little while, unless he has some serious injury. We're not really sure how severe his current ailment is. But yeah, I see both of them making the team as this roster is carried.
That pushes them over the edge. You meant onto the edge.
Yes, further onto the edge, away from the ledge.
Yes. Away from the plank.
I agree with you on Van Noy. I have Van Noy on my locks list. I do not have Shane McClellan on my lock list. Part of that is performance. He just really wasn't that great last year, wasn't tremendous with the Bears. The other thing is the injury. He's a guy who seems to get banged up a lot. And he's injured again right now, and if he's not able to prove during this summer that he can actually get on the field and be a contributor and maybe even take over that Rob Ninkovich role, then I don't know. I mean, he is still on my near lock list, which means that I would be very surprised if they didn't make the roster. I wouldn't fall off my chair and be like, "Oh my God, Shaylon McClellan!" That would be my reaction for any of the 38 guys on the lock team.
This is the guys who you would quote tweet "wow" above.
Wow. Wow. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Wow.
I'm just gonna chime in here and say that for all the loyal listeners out there, you already know this, but McClellan did jump over the line to block a kick, and that is a hill that I was willing to die on this offseason, and they have squelched that rule to my dismay. However, I'll always have a great deal of respect for Shay McClellan for that amazing play. So for me, I'm gonna comment in all caps, "Wow!"
But that's a skill that he had that's no longer useful.
He can no longer use.
This is true.
So,
R.I.P.
No, I mean, like I said, I would say wow if he got cut. And my near lock list is Brissett, James Devlin, Dion Lewis, Cameron Fleming, Ted Karras, Coney Ely, David Harris, Brandon King, Harvey Longy, Shay McClellan, and Jonathan Jones.
If you have a photographic or an odd, what would it be? Whatever your ear is, memory, you might remember that, but you said those pretty fast.
Another quick guy to note on there is Coney Ely, who...
Yes, he got hurt today.
He got hurt, but according to reports, he got hurt that he came back. But even more than that, he just hasn't been particularly impressive so far. He hasn't really played with the first team at all, much that we've seen. And I think he's a guy that has more to prove this preseason than a lot of people in his position. I think most of the newcomers that the Patriots brought in are relatively safe. The veteran newcomers, that is, the Brandon Cooks, Stephon Gilmore, Lawrence Guy, Dwayne Allen, I think they're all pretty much solidified on this roster right now. Coney Ely's a guy who's still kind of on the edge. He's a guy that we thought would be kind of in there in that defensive end rotation no matter what. Hasn't really shown a ton of it so far, so he definitely has some proving to do.
Yes.
What is the question mark surrounding Jacoby Brissett? Because the way I look at this situation is it's not as performance-based, I feel like. I mean, unless he all of a sudden just stopped trying. Don't they know what they want to do with how many quarterbacks they carry, and would it have more to do with who they have space for?
Yes. I just think that's kind of a waste of a roster spot.
That's what I mean. So
but it's not really, because there's so much uncertainty around Brady and Garoppolo. So if they were to trade Garoppolo, they probably would want to keep Brissett. In an ideal world, Brissett suffers some very, very, very not serious injury on the 4th preseason game, and they have to put him on injured reserve, and then they get that roster spot.
Foxborough flu.
Yeah, the Foxborough flu. If that doesn't happen, I mean, he's on the near lock list, so I would be very surprised if he was cut, but it's a possibility. He's not a player who is pertinent to the Patriots' success in 2017 because he's the 3rd quarterback, and they don't really like to carry a 3rd quarterback because other players are more useful on the game day roster, on the 53-man roster.
But him being at the spot that he is on the bubble is not so much, if at all, based on his performance.
It is a little bit.
I think it can be. Yeah, I think if he came out and lit the world on fire in these preseason games, then Patriots would be a lot more.
Then do you move
Garoppolo
to that spot?
No, I do not see the Patriots quarterback depth chart changing.
I guess
whatsoever.
what I'm trying to say is, can we read it more into whatever happens with Jacoby Brissett? Is that more of a sign of things to come in the future?
Maybe not, because if he's not the guy, then there's no point in keeping him around. And I think he's progressed, but I don't think he's progressed as much as I thought he would. He was sailing passes. He's been sailing passes all over the place all summer. And some of it is forgivable because he's a second-year player and he's not where Garoppolo and Brady are. But even in that preseason game, every single incompletion was over someone's head. And it's like, control yourself.
He's a guy that I would not be confident starting for my team right now. If I was the Bill Belichick of the Patriots, I would not be comfortable with Jacoby Brissett being my starting quarterback right now, which you don't really expect because he is a second-year player. He's still developing, he's still learning, but that's just where he is in his development. And do you really want to reserve a roster spot for a player like that who really can't help you that much this season? Maybe they do. Maybe they still see in his development as they predict that he's going to be a legitimate NFL quarterback a year or two from now, and they want that insurance. But it's definitely that question makes
interesting
it a little
spot to watch.
I guess I've had a hard time with verbalizing what I'm trying to say, but I feel like I've done enough of a job. No, I've been great about explaining the bubble thing, if I do say so myself. But now I've made me forget my question. Oh, I remember now. Are Brissett's? I'm looking at the external factors that are affecting Jacoby Brissett. When you look at this year's roster, is there a position that is not deep enough where you have to carry more guys that would affect Brissett? Because, as you said, if this is just a guy that you hold on to for insurance down the road and see if he can develop, then it makes sense for them to keep him. And they seem to be in a better position to be able to do that because of how strong they are. I mean, everyone's already got them to win the Super Bowl by 1,000. You know what I mean? So it's like, why not just keep this kid around?
I think it would be more a player that they had high hopes for, that they don't want to risk putting on the waiver wire.
Like Cyrus Jones.
Yeah. And like I said, I mean, it's a much better chance than not that Brissett is on the roster. But if, for instance, they were really super excited about either Jacob Hollister or Austin Carr, and they're just as excited as Patriots fans are about those guys, then maybe that's someone that you don't want to waive because you probably won't get them onto the practice squad. So then you make room elsewhere. And elsewhere could be at quarterback, since they have two pretty good ones in Brady and Garoppolo. And I think that if they were to waive Brissett, that would be if they don't view him after 2 full off seasons as a potential player that they feel comfortable as the number 1 backup behind their starting quarterback.
Do you think they could get him onto the practice squad?
I don't, because I think the Jets or the Bills would spite the Patriots and sign him, even if he was like their 7th quarterback.
They probably should.
And they probably should. He would probably be the best quarterback in the Jets.
I'm trying to think. Do you think that he's better than any starting quarterbacks around the league?
Oh, no. I don't. Depends on who starts for the Jets, I guess.
He's a very long ways away from being a everyday starting quarterback.
He might have been able to do what Jared Goff did last year. Jared Goff was kind of terrible.
Jared Goff was not very good last year.
Yeah, that's pretty bad.
So
we've talked a lot about Jacoby Brissett. I feel like we should move on. So
I think Blake Bortles is better than Jacoby Brissett.
He's better than.
So that's the nicest thing I can say about Blake Bortles.
Yeah.
Except he seems like a good guy, I guess.
Seems like a funny guy.
Yeah.
Well,
But
anyway,
not a great
all right.
No.
I'm going to ask this next question, and then I'm not so great at these iPads, but I'm going to try to get back. Wait, I need my question back. To find the questions that hopefully people are asking us and not making fun of my inability to use an iPad right now. But do you think that the Texans are a threat to beat the Patriots in Week 3, the regular season?
Well, I view this more as how big of a threat are the Texans to contend with the Patriots in the AFC. Because the AFC as a whole is pretty bad right now. At least as we're projecting our way through the season, as we're looking at the full scope of the conference, it does not look very good. I mean, the Steelers will probably be around again, but overall, you don't look at too many. Like the traditional kind of powers, I guess you could say, aren't the Broncos. I still am not expecting much unless they can figure out their quarterback situation. Maybe the Raiders are going to be good. They could regress. I've seen a lot of stats saying that that last year was kind of fool's gold. But with the Texans and what that defense did to Tom Brady in the divisional round last year, which, I mean, if the Texans had any semblance of quarterback play in that game, they could have won that game, or that could have at least been a very, very close game. And with the Texans bringing everybody back and potentially probably having a quarterback that's better, at the very least better than Brock Osweiler, I think that they have to be on maybe the top 1 or 2 contenders for the Patriots in the AFC. I mean, how do you feel about that?
I mean, they looked good last year, like you said, and that was without J.J. Watt, and it really just kind
of... I can't figure this out. Why did you come back to all of us?
I was wondering what you were doing.
I can't get them, like, pawing at it. No, I'm serious.
I don't know.
This is a new device.
I'm not very iPad savvy.
Do you know?
comments.
This looks like there's only 3 comments. Why isn't anyone asking us stuff? We're great information. Can you get it? I can't.
Yes.
You were going to answer, so
yeah, I was.
I've really interrupted this broadcast.
I don't know what's happening.
Yeah.
All right, you go ahead.
sideways,
Continue.
you'll be good.
Oh.
I forgot what I was going to say. It just really depends on the quarterback. It's obvious. If Deshaun Watson's good, then they could potentially compete with the Patriots either in week 3 or in the playoffs. If he's not ready, if Tom Savage isn't good, then I think it'll be just another year where the Patriots beat the Texans yet again.
Agreed. And it's actually kind of crazy that they will have played, once this preseason game and their week 3 game happens, they will have played the Texans 4 times in a calendar year and had 2 joint practices with them.
Yeah.
It's like, I know Bill Belichick and Bill O'Brien are boys, but that's a lot of times to see one team, especially a non-division team.
Yeah, I'm going to be a little sick of writing about DeAndre Hopkins by week 3, I think, but yeah.
I'm hoping Deshaun Watson's in there by week 3 because that would be
that'd be fun.
Exciting to watch. I don't really care too much about Tom Savage.
No.
Okay, guys, we
good?
have success. And we have some questions. So aside from people who are boycotting the NFL, which, Trevor Davidson, you're now, at this moment, my favorite viewer, how often will Dwayne Allen take snaps?
That's a good question. Probably not as often as Martellus Bennett did last year, just because he was filling in for Gronk in those first few weeks, and they really tried to limit Gronk's time on the field. I think because of that Gronk's contract incentives, he's going to want to be on the field a lot. The Patriots are going to want him on the field a lot to show what he can do. But I think that there will certainly be times where Dwayne Allen spells Gronkowski. I think we'll see occasional 2 tight end sets, but probably not as often as some people expect.
Yeah, I'm not expecting a huge statistical year for Dwayne Allen just because they have so many weapons on offense. But I am expecting him to have a solid year. He's a very good blocker, which I think people are actually going to see once he gets into a real actual game. He was one of the many people that did not play last Thursday. So, I mean, he seems to have gotten over the drop issues that kind of plagued him in the spring. And I think Patriots fans are going to like what they see. But I don't think they should get disappointed if he doesn't go out and put up even Martellus Bennett numbers from last year.
Yeah, definitely not.
What do we got?
Also a very legitimate question, also from Trevor Davidson. So this is great.
Appreciate you, Trevor.
Who do you guys expect to start in replacement of Rob Ninkovich?
That's a loaded question. Very difficult.
That's why it's a great question.
It is a great question.
Love anyone who stirs the pot.
It could really be any number of guys, from Dietrich Wise to Shaylon McClellan to even Dante Hightower if he changes his roles a little bit, Kyle Van Noy, Harvey Longy, Coney Ely, possibly. So that's like 27 players I just listed. Who do I think? Well, I wanted to give the possibilities first. Calm down, Michaela.
No, I'm calm. Let's set the table, and then we'll dissect. Maybe we'll mix it up. We'll do some cooking. We'll figure this out.
As a pure defensive end, it's been Dietrich Wise, but I don't know. This sounds crazy since I just put him on my near lock or bubble list or whatever. But Shea McClellan is the best fit because he can do the same things.
Wow.
He's just not as good.
Capital W-O-W. Wow.
Yeah, I think it's going to depend on how long Dietrich Wise is out with the concussion that he's currently dealing with.
Yeah.
Where we're not expecting him to play against the Texans on Thursday. You never know with concussions. They can be a deal where you're back a week later or you're out for an extended period of time. I mean, I think the fact that he was out before the Patriots left for West Virginia, we did see him out on the field doing some conditioning work with the injured player. So maybe he'll be back sooner rather than later. I think if he does that, if he has a solid 1 or 2 more preseason games, I think you could maybe even slide him in that week 1 lineup. But like you said, there are a wealth of possibilities at the moment, and we're not really going to see what this defense looks like until Dante Hightower gets back.
It's also it's increasingly difficult because you're not only, as I was explained before, you're not only replacing Rob Ninkovich, you're replacing Jabal Sheard and Chris Long as well.
Yep.
So if this was 2015 and Rob Ninkovich played 900 snaps at left defensive end, then you could say, yeah, it'll probably be Dietrich Wise who's filling in for him. But he played a lot fewer snaps last season, so there's not really a Rob Ninkovich role anymore. It's kind of a rotating pass rusher role.
4-man rotation in which 3 of those men are now gone.
Yeah, and Flowers didn't play anywhere near 100% of snaps last season, so his role will increase, and then I think the rotation will really come down to guys like Wise, McClellan, and I don't know, maybe Longy. We'll see.
Well, we have talked a lot about some of the undrafted free agents who have been doing really well, but overhyping them? You know, it is just preseason practices.
A little
There's
bit,
a lot of guys out there who aren't going to be playing in the NFL come September.
I think we are. It depends on your mindset. We're not hyping them in saying that they are playing well, because they are playing well. You're overhyping it if you think that every single undrafted free agent that we've spoken highly of is going to make this 53-man roster. That's not going to happen. No. There's probably going to be 2, maybe 3, maybe even 1. And any more than that would be very, very surprising and would probably be the result of some injuries elsewhere on the roster. These guys have been good. I mean, Austin Carr had a very good game. Jacob Hollister's looked good. Harvey Longy's looked good. Who else? Adam Butler has looked good. Didn't look great against the Jaguars, but he's looked good overall. But these are, I don't know. These guys are also undrafted free agents. Some of them are playing more because there are injuries around them. They're not all going to make the team. As
so
you
it's
see,
all relevant. In terms of undrafted free agents, they're really good undrafted free agents, but
some of these guys can
pony to a racehorse type of thing.
Yeah, some of these guys obviously can develop into legitimate. I mean, Malcolm Butler was an undrafted free agent. Like, some of these guys can turn into superstars. The problem that you run into is that you look at. I was on Twitter in the second quarter of the first preseason game, and people were already talking about how the Patriots have to make room on the roster for Austin Carr. I mean, they literally seen this guy play for 12 minutes. It was a really good catch, but he was like 15 snaps into his NFL career, and guys are already anointing him as like the next great Patriots slot receiver. I think when you're thinking like that, you're overrating these guys. But in saying that they're all playing well, that's true.
Yeah, I think that they're being overhyped when someone is asking me, are all 5 of these undrafted free agents going to make the roster? And the answer is no, because no team wants 5 undrafted free agents on their roster, because that means that their roster sucks elsewhere. Yeah. And you're also overhyping them if you expect them all to become superstars. But I think that so many people have gone the other way and said, like, oh, well, there's just going to be another Zach Sudfeld or another, like, I forgot who else has been mentioned in that list.
Richard
Medlin or something. When you're discounting all of the undrafted free agents that have been really good for the Patriots over the years, and it's not just Malcolm Butler. I'm making a list right now of the best, and you've got Steve Neal in there, you've got Ryan Wendell, their starting center right now. David Andrews was an undrafted free agent. Brandon Bolden was an undrafted free agent. These are guys who have big roles on the Patriots, who are these same guys who, when they were rookies, had these games, which is how they actually became these type of players, like Brandon King, Jonathan Jones. There's a number of undrafted free agents, and there's a reason why we hype them at all, because these are players who do stick on the Patriots more often than other teams. But 5 guys aren't going to make it, and they aren't all going to be, Malcolm Butler in their first season. It might take them a few years to actually get up to that point.
All right. Well, I do want to touch on one last thing. This is, I think, the best headline I've read, written by you, Mr. Kide, in a long time. But the Patriots being inconvenienced yet again.
It's really terrible.
Winning the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Now they're really up against it heading into the season.
Yeah, poor guys. I mean, like I said on Twitter, was it even worth it to win? Because now at this point, they were behind in the offseason. They were months behind everyone else.
I mean,
now they only have a week to prepare the roster for week 1. So they're going to have to be making a ton of roster moves in that first week. They don't have 10 days like the rest of the other teams. Had to do construction on Gillette Stadium to create more room for the banners.
Like,
exactly, that's what I'm saying.
It's going to be asymmetrical now. There's 5.
Well,
you could still make it
put one in the middle and then 2 on the sides.
Well, no, not that's why. But they had to move them from the. They used to have them flanking the.
They never to be on top.
They literally needed to bring in a crane to fit all their banners. That is true.
So many challenges.
Probably cost some money to put the LI on the sign in front of the player's entrance.
Right.
Think about how much those rings cost.
If we have any Jets fans watching this, they are not going to be pleased with this portion of the podcast.
But Bill Belichick, in case anyone doesn't know what we're talking about, which they should, because you should have read Doug Hyde's awesome piece about it, but Bill Belichick was complaining about that. The fact that they only have 7 days instead of 10 since they have to play the NFL kickoff game.
I feel like kind of bad pointing it out. This is the second time I've done this, because it was the day after the Super Bowl. He was already not complaining, but just saying how behind they were. But it's funny because he'll even say, listen, I'm not complaining, but you're like, well, you're kind of complaining.
He's like, I'm trying to remember exactly how we worded it yesterday. He was like, I'm not going to complain, but it is what it is. It is
Right.
a set of challenges.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, as
no
I
one
said,
feels bad for
as
you,
I said in the
Bill.
piece,
Nobody
like,
feels bad for
think
you.
about the Falcons, who were behind the offseason, didn't get a Super Bowl win. Think about the Chiefs, who they didn't win the Super Bowl. They only have a week to prepare for Week 1. So
This is very true. Yeah,
yeah,
I kinda
they're
didn't
the
even
ones who
think
should
about
complain. The Falcons, oh my God, this put us way behind the offseason. Why did we even show up? So, yeah.
All right. On that note, that's it for this week's Between the Tackles. We'll be right back at you next week. And if you are able to, donate to the Jimmy Fund. Good cause. JimmyFund.org or 877-738-1234. Thanks for watching.
If you're at Fenway tonight, come say hi, come donate. Do a good
yeah,
cause.
Zach,
I'll be
are
around.
you canning?
I am not canning. I am at the merchandise table. So
right, go to
come buy some
merchandise.
Jimmy Fun
Buy
swag.
a hat.
Unless you're not from this region. Then you probably won't make it. But
It's worth the trip.
yeah, you can call or go online.
Drive
or
real
text.
fast.
You can text
Don't drive real
cancer to 20222. That will automatically give a $25 gift, which is pretty cool. And the K is for strikeout. We're trying to strike out cancer. So yes, support the Jimmy Fund, and thanks for watching. We'll see you next week.